Welcome and Merry Christmas, everyone. At least I hope you had a good one, possibly even better than mine, where I got a cold halfway through it. It could have been better. Anyways, today we have another one of those presents we are going to be giving out. A few days ago we had one for the Mythic Plus enjoyers when it came to the tools, in this case a spooky crypt, in this case a Weakaura given to the Mythic Plus players when it came to spells of especially dangerous trash mobs to show up in your nameplates. Now we look at something for the raid instead, which can also be useful for everyone, for pretty much everyone who wants to be aware of what is going on in the raid. You have two things that go hand in hand very well together. One is a site, and number two, it's a Weakaura. They get paired together very well. So to begin, first of all, we have the site. The site, for those of you who already know about this, is lorgs.io. Now, what this does, of course, before entering on what you can do with this in the game, what this does is give you a collection of parses from Warcraft logs and then compile them for each and every different spec. Now, what will be the difference from something like going here? Going in Smolderon, rankings, and then selecting all classes, and instead you pick a red paladin, right? There you go. Now you have the same thing, you get to see all of their talents, their trinkets, for example. The difference, though, of course, is that in this site you have the compilation of every one of the cooldowns that they are using throughout the fight. And for better understanding of what's going on, you also get to see the mechanics of the boss throughout the fight. You know, for everyone who has progress already through Smolderon, you will immediately notice that this is the first absorb shield, this is the second, and this is the intermission. And then first absorb, second intermission, rinse and repeat. So with this type of site, you can look at the compilation of all the top logs and what exactly are they doing with their cooldowns. You can make it, of course, way less crowded. If you're interested only, for example, in wings, those are the wings timing of the DPS. In some cases, it's very simple. For example, you see here, it's basically on cooldown. You know, there is not much to look at when it comes to cooldowns if you're looking at, for example, a DPS who uses them every moment they are available, regardless of the cooldown. It's basically on a 1-ish minute cooldown. Same goes for Divine Toll, for example. So even in this situation, you know, it's quite simple. It's quite self-explanatory when it comes to a red paladin. But you could be interested in other things. For example, you die way too often as a red paladin. So when are other paladins using Shield of Vengeance? That could be a different answer for you. What about when are they using their healthstones or their health potion? Is it random? Is it when they are at risk of dying, or is there a specific moment they actually use a healthstone? Same goes for a healing potion. It looks like the answer would be yeah. It's kind of random, yeah. I would say the only answer you can gauge from this is you don't use anything before the half of the fight, you know? That seems to be the mostly what the players are going for. But that could be a good help for a DPS. Perhaps I chose a wrong example going for a paladin. Maybe there are some other DPS with more, you know, more technical cooldowns. Perhaps they require some more, maybe they differ from bosses, because Smolderon is a single target going on over and over at the same pace and rate. But what about some more technical bosses like Nimue? In Nimue, it might change if you are, for example, one of the players who has to go in the intermission, who has to go deal with the dangerous mythic ad on Nimue, for example. So maybe there are some specs that go into Nimue. For example, maybe Balanced Druids are known to be going into Nimue sometimes in terms of cooldowns that might change their cooldown based on whether or not they are doing that phase, for example. So this is already helpful, decently helpful as a DPS. It can be even more helpful, of course, if you are a healer. Because obviously, if you are a healer, talking about cooldowns, that's one spec where your cooldown can differ even more. Going back to Smolderon, and here are the usages of a cooldown spec like Discipline. And as a Discipline Priest, you will be able to find a few patterns on how many of the healers use their cooldown. There are going to be some healers, for example, who go for Rapture first into Evangelism in a single ramp all at once for the second absorb shield, and then there are going to be other healers who split the cooldowns. They will use evangelism for the first absorb and rapture for the second, and you get your timings throughout the fight. This is also, of course, very helpful for healers and for everyone who is approaching a new fight. Let's say you kill Smolderon, however, now you get into Tindral, and it's way more confusing, and you want to get a good idea of what the healers are doing. Well, here's your good idea of what healers are doing on Tindral. It's literally the only idea, as all of the priests are doing the exact same thing. So now you know, most likely you will have to prepare a double cooldown ramp for the second roots of P1 of Tindral. And you got to know this thanks to this quick and easy check on this site, rather than having to sift through dozens and dozens of logs of each of the guilds to then go inside, to then look at the healing, to then maybe look at the discipline priest, and then maybe look at the casts, and then maybe look at when he cast evangelism and rapture and figure out when he's casting them. This is a more comprehensive way of understanding the cooldowns of the specs you are interested in. However, I mentioned though that this was just not a single site to give to you as an extra help for the raid, it was a site plus a Weakaura. Because of course, once you get to know all of this, in-game there is also a Weakaura Kaze MRT timers right over here, which will help you by displaying the cooldowns you have planned on your note, on your ERT note. Now, the TLDR of this is, for example, let's say you have planned a set of cooldowns, you know, like this one, and these are the cooldowns that you have to plan for. If you set this up while using the MRT timer Weakaura, these will pop up accordingly in your screen. You can choose to have them as a text, you can choose to have them as an icon, you can choose to have them both, and then you can also position them wherever you want, both for the text group and for the icon group. In the custom options, you have a whole bunch of extra things that you can choose. You can choose, for example, to display the name, the text, to display them both. You can choose the warn duration, so how early before the time you want them to show up as a countdown right next to you. As a discipline priest with much longer ramp durations, you might want 30 as a spec that doesn't really need that much warning for their cooldowns. It could be much shorter. You can choose to have countdowns, you can choose to have text-to-speech to also announce each and every one of the countdowns, as long as you have this extra shared media Caucasus as an add-on. You will also be able to have text-to-speech. You can choose to ignore certain things or to show only your name, for example, right? If you are in a raid and the raid leader posts a gigantically long note for every single healer, for example, you just want yourself to be noted in the timers. And you can also choose to only have the shared note that the raid gives you, or to only show your own note. So you can just ignore the general one and only have your own note show up in this announcement. Now, why this is also relevant for the site we just talked about is because of this very handy feature right over here. For example, let's say, as our example that you just got into progressing Tindral, let's say you don't care about, for now, Hellstones, you don't care about healing potions, but you do care about evangelism, you care about, if you play with it, ultimate penitence, you care about rapture, maybe you even care about this, but it gets a bit crowded now. Anyways, just as an example, now you can choose to copy the entire note with your character's name right over this, and then you copy this, and then you go back to your game, you go back to your note, you create a new note called Tindral, and then you paste this in, and then you set it as a personal note, and now you have your note done, taken with timings, seemingly correct timings from players who already progressed and did the fight. Now you have your note. That is how this site goes hand in hand with the Kaze MRT timers add-on in-game, because you can match the notes that you can find from this site and then put them in the Weakaura in-game to have a much smoother time as a healer, getting to understand all of the different timings. You can then customize the abilities in any way you want. For example, this timing in particular will clearly be for mass entanglement, so you can go here, find out the mass entanglement ID, which is 424495, and then you can go back to your game. You can reopen your Weakaura, go right here and do this. Spell 424495. Let's close the thing, and now you have your cooldown to be used for the root. If you actually even want to show the icon up in your note. However, even besides that, it's a pretty good tool for you to get quicker up to date with the bosses when it comes to notes, when it comes to having an idea of what you have to do, especially if you are a clueless healer. Getting on a boss you have not gotten before, maybe you are re-rolling, maybe you're trying a new healer on your main run with your main guild, you're trying out, let's just say, maybe Mistweaver, because Mistweaver is good. You can go to lorx.io and very quickly get an idea of what you're supposed to be doing as that healer. Not just as I mentioned for Mythic, all the cooldowns in Mythic, but you can also do it no problem in Heroic as well. You know, assuming you're trying, for example, Fyrakk in Heroic, you can still get good ideas of what to use as cooldowns in Heroic and still copy all of the note from Heroic and then paste it in your game. This is, I believe, a very good tool for players to get to understand and learn bosses quickly, more efficiently, by very simply listening to what other players who already defeated the bosses were doing and essentially just trying to emulate them. I think this is a good pairing to go for when you are raiding and you want to get better in terms of understanding every boss, going from the note, the Kaze MRT timers coupled with lorx.io. I think it's a good tool for any raider right now, whether it is Heroic or Mythic. So this is our quality of life tip, the life hack for raiding for today. I'm gonna leave behind, of course, the links both to lorx.io but also to the Weakaura, the Kaze MRT Weakaura, for you to pick up on and give it a try. And for now, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your merry holidays. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can also be given completely for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I just want to know, how did I get a mosquito bite on the 25th of December? How does that work exactly?